Hello and welcome to the Thom and Joe show. It's real, this is happening, etc, etc. We're doing Kid A.
I've got the heads on sticks. You've got the ventriloquists.
I believe we do.
Let's go, kids.
Let's go, kids. Right, so, hello, welcome to the Thom and Joe show. I'm Tom.
I'm Joe.
We're talking about one of the most important albums of the last quarter century, and probably certainly one of the most important albums of this century so far. It's Kid A. This is part of our insane double kid, which is called insane double bill of our Kid A, which is going to be this and Oasis's What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yeah,
we are not recording these.
Another very important album.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, this is the episode that I'm sort of bringing my recommendation to the table, and the What's the Story, Morning Glory episode is Joe bringing his recommendation to the table. Because that's how we do it in the Thom and Joe show.
There is another story to this that I bought two albums on the same day, and there is this one, and to properly explain my taste, if it explains anything at all, that I bought Fatboy Slim's Halfway to the Gutter and the Stars.
Yeah, which we did later in the month.
Yep. And these two are some of my most listened to albums, so my taste is, I want to say eccentric. It's not that eccentric if we're going by these two, but if we go by the stuff I can't show you because we'd get no viewers, then you'd say that makes sense.
That sounds like a Joe thing. It is a 90s electronic album. We're recording this in August because we're not doing we've got 3 albums in October and then one in just early November, and it's this is chocked. So Kid A, where do we start with this thing? Because this is one of the albums of music music of the last quarter century.
I'm just going to start with my thought that this is kind of the Skyfall of Radiohead, which is strange because they kept trying to get a Bond theme and they tried to get it on Spectre. I mean, Spectre is the song they released, and it's really good. It probably should have been the theme instead of the Sam Smith thing. But
when we did it, we stuck it on because we regard it as the proper Bond theme, and it's amazing for a band that particularly in the last 20 years, where they obviously from Kid A, but particularly from Hail to the Chief onwards, are so anti-consumerist and anti-West, and it's and then they go, can we do a Bond theme, please? Can we do a Bond theme, please? Look, we've got a song called Man of War that is literally a Bond theme, and then we cover we've covered Bond. Please, can we do a Bond theme, please? Yeah, so that's sort of the great dichotomy of Radiohead.
Radiohead, and they've been on half the soundtracks of every movie out there.
Yeah.
But my thing is, they already did the album, and it was Kid A, or not Kid A, but OK Computer, which is.
Yeah, we touched on
it's kind of the casino.
Yeah.
It's kind of the Casino Royale to this one's Skyfall.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair comparison.
I love both albums, but I do love OK Computer more just because it feels organized, and it starts off with Airbag, which is it's a really great album starter, even though it feels at the end of a movie when you pull the twist ending and the main character realizes it, and then it's just the guitar riff comes on, and then it hits the credits right when the song starts, and that it's a better exit movie for a film than exit music for a film.
Yeah, exit music for a film, which is obviously. But the thing is, basically, OK Computer is obviously one of these albums that gets sort of banged around as this is the best rock album of the 90s. It's really that. You usually go, okay. The thing is also, you do also get a sort of a revolver Sergeant Pepper sort of sensibility with these two albums, where it's like, Radiohead fans will argue which one of these is the better one, and you know, the arguments will never cease. But this sort of OK Computer really sort of vies for, you know, with Nevermind as the big guitar statement album of the 90s. Certainly, I think OK Computer changed how, as we briefly actually said ironically when we talked about Be Here Now, and you know, 2-3 weeks later this thing hoves into view and basically kills Britpop dead, because it's like this changed. And obviously, you know, there are other extenuating real things that cause that, but you know, it's this changes towards a more introspective, less gung-ho, less certainly, you know, jingoistic form of rock music, and kind of this pushes like sort of indie onto the track that it basically then took for the first half of like the 2000s, where you get like, you know, bands like Coldplay from, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like Coldplay as a band.
They're fine.
There's that part of it where rock people just like hard resisted against it, like all of
Coldplay,
them.
Yeah, and then Coldplay basically became the U2 equivalent for their own decade, and it's like, okay, fine, I guess you're gonna go off and do. Oh, you've done an album with Brian Eno. Look, you are U2. And then you sort of do vague platitudes of like, you know, peace, love, and understanding, and that's what basically Coldplay have been doing for the last like decade and a half at this point. They say they're going to stop recording but still tour, and it's like, great. Yeah, that's a really big artistic statement. It's like, yes, you're going to avoid excess Coldplay within. Well, I'm going to stop knocking on Coldplay because they're alright, they're fine, they're a decent band. But Kid A, you would not have, you know, bands like Coldplay without OK Computer. I don't think. I think is the gist of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of fucks Radiohead up.
Oh, I bet.
Because obviously you get like, you know, this is like basically OK Computer comes out and Radiohead are just going, in Thom Yorke's own words, a complete fucking mess. You know, and it's like, you know, basically, you know, there is a fallout from this, and essentially, you know, I can do the potty biography thing. I can go, this is what Radiohead was sort of doing. The two major sort of things is Thom Yorke gets very into electronic music. If it wasn't really apparent from the sound of this, like,
yes,
this is like the other comparison that keeps coming up, and obviously, you know, a lot in the music press is the sort of the move that Nirvana did between, and you know, I certainly think this is the biggest, highest profile record since, you know, if OK Computer's Nevermind, this is very much the in utero. This is the more weird this is the introspection taken to a almost uncomfortable level, I think. But
or you know, Dark Side of the Moon to the Wall or something like that.
Or even Wish You Were Here. To be fair, there's far more. Yeah. There's and the key tenet of the change between Kid A and between OK Computer and Kid A is Radiohead sort of stopped doing something that is easily describable as rock music. And it changes
that's fairly history. Obvious. Yeah, changes musical history, for good or for ill, because to Thom Yorke's infinite madness, because you know, rock music doesn't really have guitars anymore.
No.
So Todd in the Shadow says, and I don't listen to a whole lot of rock music. I just I don't. But yeah, they do make another evolution into music.
Yeah, and the words that I think we're going to come back. We're going to talk, obviously, to go into a little bit more history in a second. But the sort of the word that comes round and round when you talk about Kid A, both in terms of its sonic content and its lyrical content, is prescient, shall we say. You know, this is the sound of, you know, you could argue, you can go, oh no, this is, you know, a lot of people obviously didn't like this record when it came out, and it remains, I would say, compared to the second half of Radiohead's career, where they basically become a very good, and I hate to use this word here, a very good progressive rock band, and I think they do become sort of progressive from In Rainbows onwards, where they are essentially a very, very good prog band in the sort of in the Steven Wilson sort of, you know, capacity of that word, you know, proper, not twiddly sort of, you know, keyboard solos, but proper, you know, intelligent progressive music. And the sort of first half of the career, and this, and obviously to a certain extent Amnesiac, which we won't talk very much about it because it is very much, you know, its own thing. Like, there is a lot of Amnesiac is a completely different set of sonic ideas to this. You know, obviously nowadays,
even though it was kind of sold as like the B-sides to Kid A, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and to the extent that obviously now, when in 2021, when the album celebrated for some reason its 21st anniversary, and obviously the pandemic, I would imagine, probably put paid to a release in 2020. It was released as Kid Amnesiac, brought all the material back together, and you know, obviously added material to that on top. But, you know, I question whether obviously we need to consider it as a whole. I think that very much, you know, it is its own thing, and it does different, you know, sonic things to, you know, to Kid A. There is far less prescient, less appearance of the electronics. So there is the electronic prescience, but also there is the lyrical prescience, because this is
and also it is the one Radiohead album post OK Computer that I don't have, so I'm not going to be much fun talking about it.
What, Amnesiac or
Amnesiac?
Yeah, Amnesiac is a strange fish of an album. It's like, I don't know, as I said, it is like at the Animals of the sort of, you know, the Radiohead, but discography. It's like, it's there, it's good, but, you know, it's sort of like, you know, particularly now you can just buy all of it in the Kid Amnesiac package. It's like, why would you individually own this? Like, the Kid Amnesiac version is like another £5 on top. It's you know, it's not a load reload or sort of, you know, Use Your Illusion Part 1 and 2 situation where it is like, no, we just have so much material that we have literally just thrown this second thing out a year later. There is a junior party and there is a senior party, and that senior party is absolutely OK Computer. Not OK Computer, Kid A, my apologies. So,
and not junior senior.
Junior senior, oh god, no. So, the kind of thing is that basically Radiohead are not having a very good time of being famous. to go back to where
I
we were.
imagine not.
So,
and being influential, I imagine. Given that when I used Napster, I found their cover of Wonderwall that is just completely mocking Oasis.
Yeah.
And another strange reason why we're covering this both on the same day.
Yeah. So, you know, Thom Yorke is not in a great place. Their imitators are becoming legion. You know, this is the point where, you know, bands like Muse start being a thing, and if you can't like hear Radiohead in Muse, then I would suggest re-listening to like the first couple of albums where it's like Muse worship almost. It's so basically the band were. So Thom Yorke basically starts experimenting with electronic stuff, and, you know, he obviously bought himself a piano, and he obviously started to go back to basics to, you know, put the guitar away. You know, a lot of writers block, I can't do things on guitar. The guitar is now just obviously at the same time he's listening to a lot of artists on the Warp Records label, which is Aphex Twin and Autechre, whose fingerprints, I'm going to be honest, are all over the first half of the album. It's like basically Yeah, which we'll get to obviously when we go to individual tracks. The
It's
band
basically
nearly
introverted come to daddy.
yeah. It's the more selected ambient works rather than the death metal jingle of sort of Aphex Twin at his less pleasant and more sort of atonal or deliberately confrontational. Yeah, it's very much that sort of IDM sort of post Brian Eno sort of stuff. It's the washes of sort of electronic sound and very simple keyboard melodies, etc., etc., etc. But basically the band are not keen on this new direction.
Oh, I bet. Because it's like, what are we doing?
Nobody is keen on this direction apart from Thom, who's basically going, yeah, let's do an electronic album, and everybody, obviously, and Thom Yorke influences, obviously, cites the band Can, who are very much a jump-off point between electronic music and obviously krautrock, who Radiohead obviously, do feel some influences on, particularly on the second half of this record. Nobody is on board for this. Thom is basically like, everybody went, this is either going to be art rock bollocks, or, this is really cold, and, everybody's like, Thom, there don't seem to be many guitars on this album, and, 2 out of the 5 of us play guitars and there's no drums, and you're kind of shutting the rest of the band out. What's going on here,
Yeah.
And it's also here they start to experiment with, a lot of synthesizers and what's sort of become Johnny Greenwood's sort of like instrument of choice, which is the Odense Marnotte, which is a really early electronic instrument. If you've heard like any Johnny Greenwood score, it's this not quite, and obviously it's the first instrument we actually hear on the album, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but obviously there is a lot of electronic mucking about, and the band almost breaks up twice, and
Yeah. It's
and
weird
then,
that that this came out at the same time as the American movie version of High Fidelity, because this seems like an argument the band would be having with Thom Yorke, like, oh, your influencers are German. Name one: Falco, Kraftwerk, Hasselhoff.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Basically, and slowly everything starts to coalesce, and and then the really strange shit starts happening in terms of what. So there's kind of obviously Radiohead at this point are disillusioned if the breakdowns and unhappiness is not the 3 times at least I think it is listed the band nearly broke up. They are not keen on promoting this thing. At all. And it's kind of here that Radiohead accidentally become like one of the first artists to accidentally release an album online. Kid A gets leaked, and no, and everyone, obviously everyone's sort of like doing damage limitation, and it's like no, I don't think oh shit, the album's leaked 3 weeks early, and yeah, interesting. We'll get to sort of this element first, but I think this is sort of where the album does sort of really lean in accidentally almost into its prescient sort of nature. I've been talking a lot. Joe, do you have any general sort of like thoughts about the feel of OK Computer before we get into like
Kid A? We're going to be doing that a lot. We're going to be doing that a lot. We're going to be switching the name OK Computer and Kid A lot.
Fucking hell. The album that we are talking about, what is called yes,
Kid A.
Kid A. There we go. Large sticker, snap. There we go. Kid A. Whenever Joe says OK Computer, unless we are actually talking about OK Computer, we will be talking about Kid A. Kid A. There we go. Yes.
It is definitely outright more of a challenging album. As Entertainment Weekly said, it takes like until the guitar on the national anthem before like any like rock influence gets into the album. And that was too much for them. But then again, Entertainment Weekly is like popular rock and whatever else, magazine. But like everybody else, around me who knew music, it's like you have got to grab this up and you have got to absorb it and you have got to put it into your soul. So, I kind of did while buying also halfway from the gutters to the stars. And that is probably the second one is probably my most listened to album, not because it's a particular favorite, but it's just because it is an album I can put on at any time and be fine with. And this is not so much, not because it's bad. I mean, obviously it is important and I really like it and all of that stuff. But it does not put me in a good mental place. It probably puts me into like 2001 America post 9/11 place,
precisely.
Which is also why it's prescient, because it was all of what was about to come. But it is a really, I don't want to say difficult, because it is I don't know how to say this nicely, but it is like all of those startup bands that have stuff to say about society. That is what this album is saying. But it is so good at what it's saying that it does not matter, because it is one of the defining things of like what it is talking about, like society and like the wall, and how like in the movie version there are normal people who lose their faces, and it is that kind of commentary on
statement,
the world that
and I'd say the word I think you're looking for it is an album, and I feel this is obviously a lot of Thom Yorke's. It's an album. It's almost neurotic. It's almost neurotic. There's certainly a sort of I think neuroticism it's a thing that comes around again and again, particularly on OK Computer, on Kid A, to a certain extent on Hail to the Thief. Although Hail to the Thief is a lot more anger at the sort of the Iraq War, and then from all there on, Radiohead become a more balanced, more holistic sort of unit with things like In Rainbows, where they go, okay, we are still going to talk about these things, but in a more reasoned, in a more adult way. And
I think everything after OK Computer becomes kind of, they're doing OK Computer but in a different way. That is sort of my feeling. I mean, they're still good albums. I mean, I still own them and I like them, but it still feels like, oh, we're doing this thing from OK Computer, or we're doing this thing from Kid A.
Extensions of the same idea taken in different. I certainly think that's Radiohead found a sonic technically two sonic templates that they could riff off and sort of mix together and sort of bounce off, and the only album I'd say possibly sort of bucks that trend is the most recent, as of recording them in Sodsor now, and Radiohead will go. Radiohead have been nearly a decade without a album, which is 2016's Moonshaped Pool, which is sort of a different thing. Is almost entirely strings based in a lot of places, and feels more like a Thom Yorke solo thing with the rest of Radiohead as like ancillary musicians. It is it's. Ironically enough, it's not actually unlike the OK Human sort of album in terms of that. It's using the which is we talked about Weezer, which obviously again rips off OK Computer, but I mean Weezer would love to be Radiohead, and sometimes it really really shows. But
you will never be Radiohead. I'm sorry.
It's that same sort of like, we can use the strings to essentially be an instrument, you know, to be obviously a replica, or you know, to take the sort of notes of a guitar in a different direction, but also do really interesting percussive stuff, which is probably best seen on the track, the lead single off Aminsho Pool, which is Burn the Witch. But we're getting off track here, I feel. Yeah, so I think it's a neurotic, nervy record, but whilst OK Computer is sort of the jittery, you know, drug, you know, fueled sort of, you know, neuroticism of, you know, a 1997 member, you know, employee in the London Square Mile. This is this is more essentially prophetic. Something bad is coming, and this is our way of dealing with it. Something not right is going to happen.
And OK Computer is like big, where Kid A is more withdrawn.
Yes.
And as we go, I like big. For
Statement
lack
records.
of a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of sort of talked about a little bit of the marketing of this. The cover of this is one of the covers of like album history. It's like there is a lot. I mean, so this is again done by, you know, Radiohead's usual in-house artist, who is Stanley Donwood, who tends to work with Thom Yorke basically in, you know, and there's obviously influences of, you know, melting ice caps and global warming. It's a thing of nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like it's a thing of it's not right again. You know, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Radiohead, obviously, when they did the Kid Amnesia thing, obviously did a lot of, you know, digital, you know, sort of things, and went into like the production of this album in the Kid A sort of digital exhibition, which is an interesting thing to sort of wander around if you've got a couple of hours and, you know, a games console. But yeah, the album cover of this is this sort of like mountain landscape, and, you know, there's like volcanic activity going off in it, and this sort of unsettling glitch sort of sea before it, and these sort of shapes in the background. It's not a happy album cover, and it's sort of like that monolithic sense of, you know, imposing and frightening, and, you know, this alien landscape into which, you know, Radiohead have receded almost.
Yeah, and there's like the outline that looks like a factory.
Yeah.
So we don't want to excuse mankind's little role in this.
No. I mean, it's unsettling is, I think, the word I'm going to use here. I mean, compared to Kid Amnesia, which is just equally strange sort of illustration on the back of what appears to be an exercise book of some, like, hunched figure. This is, like, apocalyptic. There is, like, this sense of, you know, melting glaciers in, like, water, or, you know, exploding volcanoes, and it's like, okay, fair enough, this is a state, and it's almost like teeth-like, these sort of like promontories of thing. It's it's an album cover that gets ripped on a lot, and
and because OK Computer and Hail to the Thief, you know what those are saying. You get the feeling of what Kid A is saying, but you don't get the like main idea. You have to go searching.
Yeah, indeed, and it's sort of again an esotericism that sort of Radiohead have played with since, you know, what the fuck is that on the cover of King of Limbs, for example. It's this sort of weird thing, and in Rainbows is sort of almost like a, you know, a test pad. You know, it's, you know, much like OK, you know, it's a sensibility of doom and panic, and, you know, various other things. I mean, there is a fantastic at time of recording, I think it's going until next sort of February, it's in Oxford. There is an exhibition of, you know, Godric's, you know, of these paintings, including artwork for this. So, you know, if it's still going when we obviously release this episode, I'll put it down below. It's, you know, it's the Ashmoleum. It's a great little museum. So, anyway, album cover. Right, shall we begin?
Yes.
Yeah. So, where better to start than
everything is in its right place.
Everything in its right place. Yes.
So to tell you how, you know, influential and a part of our society this would be, Cameron Crowe heard this and immediately got everything in its right place for Vanilla Sky, which I believe came out the next year. Yeah.
2001,
and so like immediately people knew this was a big thing and that this was a game changer, and this would be on so many more soundtracks, or to put it more exactly, like the trailers, because everything in its right place just tells you is like a good primer for this album, because and a good primer for whatever, if you're like a secret CIA assassin or whatever else, because the lyrics tell you one thing, and there's clearly a mood that indicates that something is wrong. Because it is everything in its right place, but everything is like in that low, menacing tone that clearly something is wrong.
So yeah, this is almost entirely Thom Yorke, because this is a Thom Yorke on synthesizer, and yeah, this is a Prophet 5 synthesizer. Apologies, I thought it was an Odin's Bard on it, but this is like, you know, it's an immediate break. It's, you know, this is not the distorted, you know, guitar from the beginning of Airbag. This is something new. This is like, you know, it's I hesitate to call the word madness mantra, although Thom Yorke, obviously talking about this later, was basically like, this song is about, you know, the lyrics particularly are about his depression, and you know the point where he was just becoming completely closed off from the world, and you know, the sense of being, oh, okay, you know, oh, everything's in its right place, you know, the sense of being in little boxes, etc., you know, to connect. You know, it's an immediate break, but the sort of the more interesting sort of thing is, you know, it's the tone of the record, you know, summed up in, you know, that whether you get that introductory synthesizer, do 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 do, you know, that sort of like, I'm going to obviously spread it up a little bit. There's sort of, you know, the sensibility of it. Like, this is where is everybody? This is just Thom Yorke. Where is everybody else? You know, this sense of this almost glacial, you know, Rhodes Hammond sort of sound. You know, this is a sound. This is so radically different from what Radiohead have done previously, and you know, it's where I think, and the next track is where the sort of the Warp Records influence comes in most, because it's remove Yorke's vocals and you have a mid-tier Aphex Twin song, or you know, a Warp Records, you know, esque piece of music.
Although I will say, on Everything in Its Right Place, people spent an inordinate amount of time of like, yesterday I woke up sucking a lemon, and it's like, what does that mean? And it's just kind of the one specific detail in this song that is kind of summing up the album, or just, you know, a primer of what to come.
Yes. That was because Thom Yorke literally was just pissed off looking the entire Kid A toy. He was just like, the you know, looked like he had been sucking, that sort of, you know, annoyed, pursed expression of just like, oh, right, I see. And like obviously you get mentions of the sort of you get implications of bipolarity. The sort of there are two colours in their head, there are two colours in my head. Sort of sensibility. It's not a happy statement. This is like Airbag starts with I'm back to save the world, and this is like
as delusional as it may be.
Yeah, delusional, but it's like hey, I can do these things. This might be, or I may or may not be dead in this fast German car. But the sensibility of this is cold and isolated, and not everything is not in its right place. Ironically enough, sort of kind of the most interesting little bit which indicates sort of the influence of this record outward. Steve Reich, the American minimalist composer, redid this and reinterpreted it for his 2012 composition Radio Rewrite, which essentially is reworking two Radiohead tracks, Jigsaw falling into place, everything in its right place, which is the first and only time Steve Reich has done anything recontextualizing popular music, which should indicate sort of how influential this avant-garde minimalist composers are looking at your stuff and going, yes, I can reinterpret this. This is going to stop. I am going to do a piece of music which interprets your piece of rock music. Interesting. But Reich sort of goes, the sort of something about this sort of basically the F minor, which is what this is written in, and never actually resolves properly into F minor, which is obviously this uneasy sensibility. It's the ending of classical music. It's and this is like somebody who has done decades worth of interesting music describes it as it's perfect.
Yeah, probably. Perfect to a fault. I mean, not the fault of the composition, but
no.
Perfect in that way that things are not perfect.
Yeah. Oh no, completely. It's this perfect imperfectness in this sense of it doesn't resolve. It doesn't stay. When the chord F is voiced, is not the chord F, it's the chord F and then another bit on the thing, and it's it's this unsettling sort of left bent sort of sensibility to it. And the sort of electronic oddness continues on the title track, Kid A. This is more unsettlingness. And Thom Yorke's voice is through a really sinister, sort of, thing, and it's it's because I think Thom Yorke obviously has this going through his, this strange setup of pedals and other stuff, and very very processed. You kind of forget this song is probably this is some really dark lyrics.
Yes. It is probably me at 4 a.m. some nights in my 20s.
Yeah, it's nightmarish. Yorke's vocals do not help this. This sort of strange. I'm going to actually make a comparison here to the band who obviously we have talked about on this show previously, but not in the context that obviously they were at, ironically, about the same time, which is another band that sort of left rock music to go towards electronicism, which is Ulva. If you remember way back when we talked about Ulva, when they were in their black metal phase, but they also did this sort of treated vocal strangeness in a very good EP, which is very difficult to get hold of these days. I think they may have redone it, but it's well worth a listen, because it's sort of that glitch electronica taken to in a commercial, at least in a commercial environment, as far as you can take it, which is an EP called Silence Teaches You How to Sing, which is sort of that same cut up, that same glitchy 3 o'clock in the morning awaking from sleep terrors sensibility. Yeah, but no, you've got this sort of
it's kind of two things that you're sitting up and they're thinking about society or whatever else. And then on the other end, you have Tom York sitting up and thinking about how he has, become like part of this sinister thing that he has been railing against. Like especially the outro, the rats and the children will follow me out of town. Come on, kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
like, what is this? Yeah. What is this? Is this sort of child abduction? Is this because it's a strange, interesting thing that Radiohead do come back to, this sort of childhood sing-song thing sort of later on, optimistic, the sort of like the little piggy, the pigs, the fish, etc. Is this a sort of a metaphor for something else? Is this the power of the media? There's so many layers you can read this on, and then that sort of nonchalant come on kids at the end.
Yeah, it's casual. There's nothing sinister on the way it's presented, and it's just casual because it's everywhere. It's everything, and it's not even like, as we are talking about this in 2025. There is nothing like outwardly like this is villainous, even though like villainous acts are happening every single day that we can't keep up. The world is burning down right now, and it's casual in the news, and there are certain things they won't talk about, but they'll just say it, and it's just they'll say it in a casual voice. I work in the news, and sometimes it gets to me a whole lot that we are just in our little bubble, and we have to be, because so much shit happens that if we don't, then our kind of personality, our psyche collapses, because there's just so much right now.
The second verse particularly feels like that, because it's like, is this these heads on sticks and ventriloquists, is this merely a childish play? Are these is this some sort of French Revolution where we've literally got people's heads on sticks? Are these sort of puppets, etc., etc. What is this saying? Is this saying the media is puppeted? The media are just heads on sticks and ventriloquists puppeted by someone in a greater degree of power? Is this sort of what level are we reading this on? Is this insurrection? Is this the complacency of the media? What is this? And that's the thing. Kid A never really answers these sort of twitchy,
I can respond to that kind of feeling. I mean, not definitively, because it's art. Everybody has to look at it. But when you're working in the media, you feel like both. Like at the same time that you are helping this, and also you want to completely destroy it. At least from my end, and not the people who get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and to be anchors and stuff like that, and they're pretty well set up, and they're on the verge of retirement, and they aren't experiencing the same world where everything has been taken from us as me, who still has like 20-30 years to go. And I don't know if my retirement is going to be there, and I certainly know I'm going to need to work until I'm dead.
Yeah, this is an album which does summon up some quite unpleasant thoughts, and it is you are very much dropped back into what Thom Yorke circa 1998 1999 was thinking, and there is this paranoid street through it, and there's also this street that comes through in a lot of Yorke's music, and there's this sort of the downtrodden sensibility of just trying to make it through day by day, which he captures probably better than I would say most songwriters of his period. I think, but probably the most electronic thing and electronic track on the album, certainly is most unsettling, and then we sort of get to the rock, and it's like,
yes.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're throwing a bone to the people. It's like, I thought I bought a rock album.
Dun dun
So,
dun dun
and
dun
then
dun
there,
dun dun.
yeah, we've had this guitar line in our head, or should I say riff, but
Yeah. To be fair, Tom
for
York also
this
had
whole
that in
week.
his head because he came up with this when he was 16. It's like
Hmm.
it's just it's like basically the first two tracks, and then this bass just cuts in, and it's just like, okay, they still know how to
Oh
do
yeah,
that. Fantastic. Yeah,
yes, yes.
this sort of sloppy played, fr- free jazz chaos. I mean, this might be my favorite Radiohead song.
Okay, that's fair
This is
enough.
like there's just it's like if someone said, okay, how do I get into Radiohead? I'd go listen to this.
Hmm.
And it's like it's just like all the sort of the experimental sort of thing, and this sort of this sort of craft kraut rock sort of can-esque bass line where it just roots this thing in place until it just rides this for about 5 minutes, 5 nearly 6 minutes. It's just
Hmm.
chaos. It's beautiful chaos.
Yeah, all of the just random jazz instruments, like there's a saxophone that drops in, and it's
Yeah,
just fits this disjointed,
yeah,
disorganized world
yeah,
where everyone is so near, but everybody's holding on. So they're all separate.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like this sense of being collective yet sort of held apart. This mad mix of sort of disparate musical elements, and yet the lyrics are still disconnected. And this is that the sort of what obviously certain reviews would call it this this is and then the horns come in, and it's like somebody has just like piled in through the front door of Ronnie Scott's in in London, which obviously is the premier jazz club, in just a bulldozer, and it's like, what is going on here?
Hmm.
And York would take, by the way, the influence of this as Charles Mingus's Town Hall concert, which is a great record, but it is just organized. It's just chaos. It's free
Yeah.
jazz at its freest. It is just chaos. York was basically conducting this and jumped up and down so much he broke his foot. Whilst like
Oh dear.
conducting the horns for this, which to kind of indicate the amount of energy in the room for that. It's just
Hmm. And there's also an Ornette Coleman
yep.
experimental jazz part of it.
Yeah, and then there's obviously on top of this, it's Johnny Greenwood's Onez Marnot, and what he tends to do live, which is run around with an FM radio and sort of just pick up stuff and then sort of do weird Johnny Greenwood esque radio manipulations.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of this obviously is Radiohead obviously have stated in the thing is difficult to produce live, and the live versions of this are a lot more not typical to the Radiohead sound, but they have to they are their own beast.
Yes.
Certainly,
They
yeah, and
can't just replicate the absolute chaos that was the making of this song.
yeah. Yeah, the album, I might be wrong, live recordings record as about 4 or 5 of these, and obviously there's obviously loads of YouTube videos. They did a concert in South Park in Oxford, which is like basically their massive homecoming thing of going, look, we've got a new record. It's got all of this and it's bloody awesome.
Hmm.
Which is very strange thing to say about Radiohead, but anyway, as I said, I love this track, but it is like it's the big rock WRAK rock moment of the album, I think.
Yeah, it is sort of the wake up. Okay, it's time for
Oh shit,
the
tell
album to
me.
start proper. If you're one of those people who uh, really wanted old Radiohead.
Yeah, yeah. It's really the most Radiohead-esque track of the entire album, I think, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what more to say. It's pretty obvious what it's about.
Yes.
It's about, I mean, the national anthem. It's about how we're all here together, but we're all separate because we're
in our
we're
boxes.
all afraid. So we do things like Brexit. I don't know.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
again, very
No,
prescient.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, I mean, it applies to Americans too, but Tom York's British.
Yeah, he's British. Yeah, this is, as I said, probably my favorite track of the album, possibly my favorite Radiohead track ever. I'm surprised like nobody's ever used that as like a opening or like an action scene piece of music for like a film, because it's fantastic and it's just great. Yeah, and then we get sort of How to Disappear Completely, which is again completely the opposite direction again.
Mm-hmm. And this was my favorite song in the 20s. We'll get to my favorite song in the 30s, but it's the one I would listen to on loop a whole lot, and I don't think it was very good for me, as is the second one.
Yeah, that's
Like
agreed. Yeah, this is one of Radiohead in their more balladic form, and it's sort of Radiohead. I don't, have tended to go into this more in their sort of, more recent era.
Yeah, it is very lonely. It is very depressed. It is essentially what I feel like in the overnights as like a 20-something when things weren't good at all. That, I can go anywhere, but it's, I'm not here, this isn't happening, but obviously this isn't the way the music communicates it. This isn't a good thing. This is depressing that I do not exist in any way that causes like any recognition upon the world.
Yeah, which is ironic because the origin of that that particular phrase, "I'm not here, this isn't happening," comes from Michael Stipe, who meant this like really holistically for York, who was dealing with to deal with Torstro. It's like, you relax, dude. You're not here. This isn't happening. You just center on yourself and don't worry about like everything around you. York would then obviously. Stipe would then obviously listen to How to Disappear Completely, write Disappear for Reveal, and then apologise to Thom Yorke for stealing the idea that Thom Yorke was given by Michael Stipe. But it's like, I see. Yes, this is very complicated.
You didn't take my advice at all, and you took it and went the other way.
Yes. I'll just be here doing whatever it is that 2000s REM does. Yeah. And then there's sort of.
I'll be here in the corner. I'll be here in the spotlight.
Yes, indeed. But no, there's sort of and then obviously there's this sort of weird dream, apocalyptic sort of vision, etc., of York running naked down Dublin's River Liffey, which obviously, there's whole levels of allusion to, things like Joyce in there, pursued by a tidal wave. So it's like, yes. Yes, it's like, there's a lot of like allusions and, sensibility of,
And it's probably the most British part of it, because one of the biggest like things is, what the hell is a Liffey? Or what is the Liffey?
Yes.
Because that was another big line us Americans were trying to parse.
Yeah. No, indeed, it's like basically he's like floating around Dublin as a ghost, which again, is a level of illusion, that sort of obviously you get into Ulysses, etc. I don't know if it's intentional.
I have more than a little bit of Irish in me, so everybody in Dublin is a ghost because we're all super white.
Cough. Dubliners cough. Yes. But I don't know if that's obviously a deliberate allusion to James Joyce, or if it's just like, floating around uplifty, typical. But again, we it pulls back to this apocalyptic imagery of like, grand destruction and things falling apart and fireworks and hurricanes, etc.
Yes,
I
but
like this. I
he
like
still
this
isn't
song.
here.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this song. It taps into a part of me that I'm not
Yeah.
proud of. You don't show
No.
every day, but if you have to be honest and say things are out there, you feel this, because otherwise people are just going to be like, I am on my own. Nobody feels like this. Everybody else is just going on about their business, and like,
Yeah.
no, people have these problems. People have
Yeah.
these feelings, and you are not alone, which I think Tom York would need, but I don't think he would believe, because I didn't fucking believe it, in my most depressing times.
Yeah. And then you got, obviously, on top of this, you got the strings are not only an allusion to Penderecki, who is this rather fearsome Polish composer. Obviously, if you've ever seen not Hitchcock, you ever seen The Shining, he is the one who does all the really atonal sort of music. They obviously collaborated with the Orchestra of St. John's, who was Penderecki's preferred orchestra, etc. These long drone strings. Obviously, again, we have more of the Ardens Marnot, and there was a rumor, and this is obviously that had O'Brien, because O'Brien was keeping a daily diary at this point, because this is the sort of level that Radiohead was sort of slowly imploding. That basically, no, Godspeed You Black Emperor are not on this song, Go Away. Which is another sort of like strange selection of like post rock. But no, as I said, it is this ghost of a song, I think.
Yeah. And like, I don't know how much I can talk about it more. I think I've said what I need to say.
Yep. Yeah.
Because, like, again, I cannot hang around this song too long. Otherwise, it nips into some bad parts of me.
Let's be optimistic.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Oh yeah, Tree Fingers, which is which is one of the two electronic, like, instrumental tracks on the album. Unnerving, I think, is what catches Tree Fingers, I think, probably quite best.
Yeah. It's a break, but it's not a break.
Yeah, it's like, no, we're gonna have more weird electronic music, and you're gonna sit here and go, yes, this is
yes, just stare out your window a little bit, look out at the bronze lighting and the nothing going on, and the quietness, and reflect.
Yeah, it's I think at this point we are going to talk like generally about like the prescience of this, because like obviously, again, material covered more on Hail to the Thief, but this is ironically for an album released nearly a year before. This is like this album seems to get, and obviously this is not just like by like people like this, the serious music journalists go, no, this is like basically a prediction of 9/11. It's like it's like, oh, okay, this is the whole, and obviously, again, OK Computer goes into the paranoia of like the mid to late 90s, and the Karma Police, the etc, the sort of what it's like to be a 20, nearly 30 something in particularly inner cities, and the screaming yuppies and this and that and the other, and probably the most terrifying thing that radio have ever put to music, which is Fitter Happier, which is genuinely unnerving, and a visitation from probably again, horribly prescient album, but this sort of takes things further, and there is this and like, it only sort of keeps coming back to it, to sort of this sense of doom around this thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it is this palpable sonic sort of panic attack of a record that feels like all these sort of senses of the catastrophe and fantasy worlds and apocalyptic sort of sensibility. Obviously, we'll get to the track that I think best sort of grabs that, which obviously comes much later in the record. But there you can't escape the fact that there is this almost sibylline prophetic sensibility to what York is singing about. Okay, are we drawing a massive assumption? Are we going, okay, this is a dark and disturbing album about dark and disturbing things happening? We immediately attach it to the most obvious dark and disturbing thing that happened within a year of it releasing, or is there something more to this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then we get into Optimistic, which is the second
Guitars!
song that's, yes, not only guitars, but it's just this, how you feel about it in the 30s. And again, another song that does me a lot of harm when I loop it, but
Yep.
it is trying to do something about it. And
Yeah.
I can say this as the person who has to work Christmas and a person who has been put on suspension for just yelling at
Yeah.
a coworker for just not doing their job, not doing anything, in fact. And the problem was that this thing wasn't done. The problem was me yelling about it.
Yeah.
And I got full blame for it. And even though I was doing 3 or 4 things at once, the big thing was I wasn't doing my job and doing the extra thing they wanted to do. And it's just like, I am directing right now. But I had to take the full blame. I had to take the full thing of, well, if you're not good enough to do this basic thing, we're going to have to take you off of this, and this, which came from other people just straight not doing your jobs. And it is that kind of, anger that feeds like Optimistic, where you want to do something, but there is nothing to be done. Or when you try to do something, you just harm yourself. And that is just this song, or at least part of it. There is,
definitely.
the lines, "Not my problem, give me some time," which is like, everything is where all these bad things that happen around, white, upper middle class people, we should say, is it's not my problem. So we need time to figure this out. Just let us have that time, even though everything is being taken away, everything is being destroyed, and it's sitting here talking about that. So this feeds into a lot of that anger and a lot of that pessimism. And Optimistic is obviously ironic. And it's mocking optimism, because we're the people who tried to do things and then it backfired, or it didn't change anything. So,
but no, at the same time, it's like, again, the line, "You can try the best you can, you can try the best the best you can," is again Tom York pulling from one of his loved ones, of going, "Tom, stop stressing out on tour, you're doing your best here, come on." It's like, and he sort of twists this, I don't know if it's malicious, I don't know if it's like how Tom York song writes, to take disparate elements of the things probably, I imagine him writing this down somewhere and just going, "Right, I remember that, thanks," and sort of twisting it in on himself, this sort of almost self-help book sort of sensibility of this sort of the chorus, and he juxtaposes it with, because the interesting sort of thing sonically is, this is really the only track on the album that sort of looks back to the sort of previous Radiohead sound. This is very much the the sonic sound of Radiohead's second album, The Bends, I would say on this, but you know, and yet that sort of leaning forward again to the sort of, and again possibly lyrically looking back as well, because there's obviously a great skewering of capitalism, you know, the flies, the vultures, you know, which is a Nietzsche quote, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this sort of this biting sort of, you know, sensibility of, you know, this one's optimistic, this one meant to market, this one just came out of the swamp, you know, this and payloads and this sort of military industrial sort of, you know, sense, you know, and then sort of this almost
and
the
then
bridge
there's
where
like
yeah
the reference to
yeah
Animal Farm, the Orwell
yeah yeah
novel, and probably Animals, the Pink Floyd album.
yeah oh definitely, oh certainly, I think, yeah. And then that sort of, you know, snide sort of, you know, I'd really like to help you, man, you know, really like to help you, man, you know,
Yeah,
and sort of
but you can't.
leaves on this sort of, you know, this savagery of sort of dinosaurs, you know, roaming the earth. But it is, you know,
Yeah.
it's yeah
I'd really like to help you, man, is probably the line of Gen
yeah
X managers I have had who are
yeah
supposed to be an advocate for your department, but
yeah
instead they are the ones who are making they have to
mm,
make you do what you
mm,
do without complaining too much or giving them
yeah
too much problems. That's what
yeah
they do, and
yes
they are forgetting part of their jobs.
yeah yeah. I mean, is optimistic? No, no. It's greedy. You could read this certain ways and go, you know, this is basically, oh well, look how little humanity's sort of, you know, evolved. You know, we just, you know, remember when dinosaurs ruled the earth, because we barely got past that because we're just caught up in in our consumerist behavior, and obviously, you know, eventually
And
would
we
be
are not paying attention to our own destruction, is what
yeah
I get from that line, is that
mm,
like we are the dinosaurs right now
yeah
and we're not realizing that we're bringing about our own
yeah
end.
yeah. The meteor is inching closer.
Hmm.
Yeah. um and then we get in limbo, and in limbo is sort of like
It
the
kind of brings you down for the end of the album.
yeah. It's sort of it's sort of like it's the track I have least to say about, apart from the, you know, the references to the shipping forecast, which is this thing that they do in the UK where, you know, basically it's this, and, you know, Blur's This Is a Low, which is obviously also talks, you know, obviously refers to these areas of the shipping forecast. You know, it's this very British sensibility of, you know, traveling around the island, you know, the obviously the seas of the UK, you know, obviously just before, you know, people go to sleep. Usually it's usually on like nearly 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's basically the only people who are going to be listening to it are insomniacs and fishing
Yeah.
people in boats, weirdly enough. But you
And
know,
I'm
again,
sure he is listening to that every night.
oh no, certainly, certainly. It's like it is at once this sort of, you know, this somnambulant thing, and, you know, and yet, you know, this sort of glimpse of home, because, you know, it's like, you know, you know, York dealt with a lot of homesickness, whereas, you know, It's Is a Low is like, oh look, when we go around the UK, you know, all the familiar little things you hear on the radio, you know, this is I am hundreds of miles from home, and the only thing, you know, that I can, you know, that I know it's two, and I'm on a tour bus somewhere and I can't sleep, and, you know, we're going, you know, the shipping forecast is on. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
and then this sort of
And there is this sort of vocal effect where, like, there is kind of an echo, but it doesn't go very far.
No.
Like, not the echo where somebody could hear you. So
No.
you are in a space, but it is a dark space where you are alone in, and nobody is hearing you. Like, it gets cut off very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a sensibility of this sort of, like, you know, this juxtaposition of, you know, you're living in a fantasy world, the most beautiful woman in the world, you know, this almost Bond-esque imagery, and this sensibility of being stuck and lost, and, you know, falling even deeper into depression, and even a sense of, and obviously in limbo obviously from a view of it is obviously Dante's Inferno. Where are we? We're stuck. We're lost at sea. We're stuck. Is this somewhere that is this Tom York trying to basically make sense of his writer's block? Is this sensibility of being stuck in this sort of in hell, or etc.? Because apparently he really got into sort of like Dante's Inferno. Again, I can imagine for somebody traveling around the world, it's weirdly reassuring, perhaps, or perhaps it only built on the sense of isolation.
Yeah. And it is a very isolated song. Like, it doesn't even like feel attached to the other songs in the album. It just kind of comes it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't make an impression. It just doesn't, it doesn't connect. It is this little thing, like it says, lost at sea, that it fits the theming of the album, but like it comes right after Optimistic, which is like the most rock thing of the album, and it is next to Idiotech, which is it's certainly a different sensibility, but it's more active, and it's more, there's more going on. This thing is just, it sits by itself and it's alone.
Yeah, and that's the sort of the thing. And it's also the shortest track on the album, which I don't think helps. Because, like, ironically, because this is barely like 40 minutes, and this is a point at which a lot of albums were very, very long. Well, actually, nearly 50 minutes, but yeah, this is the only track on the album I don't think is like absolutely A game material. And I think you could probably swap a stronger track from Amnesia for that, and I don't think it would make any difference to the flow of the record. And then you get Idiotic, which is like, boy, this is different. This is the dance. This is literally an electronic dance song.
Yeah, but the lyrics are very not electronic dance. Or it is, and you are actually recognizing how bad the lyrics are. Because like there's a Pablo Francisco song where he goes to a rave, and like the lyrics are like, kill myself, and then you just realize how like weird the lyrics are. But this is very on point with like being uncomfortable and just kind of like very unnerving lyrics that are the first thing that hits you besides the beat or whatever else.
Yeah. This is also the first, the only time that the album actually contains full-on sampling. This samples Mild und Lies, which is a computer music. This is really early, like proper. This is the point at which Pink Floyd bought a synthesizer basically off the production line, and we're doing really weird electronic stuff like On the Run with this, and people were sitting down like Wendy Carlos and doing proper composition for electronic music. So this is done by a gentleman called Paul Lansky, who I'm glad to say is still very much with us, and essentially this is just done on an IBM computer with an ancient program called Music 360, which is from Bell Labs, which indicate how old how primitive the software is. Is from 1957. An FM synthesis. This is like the birth of like electronic music. And obviously it samples this, and Lansky allowed Radiohead to use the sample, and this is sort of Radiohead's and particularly Johnny Greenwood, who sort of really got into electronic music, obviously, and his scores obviously show that it's sort of unnerving, this thing, because it's almost like, yes, okay, this is an Aphex Twin song. Certainly you can go, hey, look, one of Tom York's other friends is also really doing electronic music, which is obviously what Bjork was starting to do in, you know, homogenic, and obviously on homogenic, which is obviously, you know, really the start of, you know, really interesting electronic, you know, cutting edge electronic sort of stuff, you know. But and then you get to the lyrics and it's like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just it's the end of the world, I guess.
Yeah, this starts with the
And
lyrics, who's in the bunker, who's in the bunker, and does not
women and
get better
children
from
first.
there.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
The
where,
most
like,
interesting lyric is Ice Age coming, let me hear both sides, which is
yeah.
definitely what we're feeling about, like, right about now, except, you know, the opposite. Like, we have
The
to hear
current
both
situation.
sides.
Yes.
The current situation where we have to hear both sides and not like, okay, we're completely destroying everything, and we have to use the name that the people who are destroying everything call it, like the big beautiful bill. Fuck you. We don't have to do this. Just call it the budget bill, and you know,
Yeah.
we can
You're not the
say
Walt
what
Disney Company.
bluntly
Come on,
what it
guys.
does,
Yeah.
and then we just have then we have to hear the other side of the story about what it's going to do, even though we know what it's going to do. It is going to do terrible things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and then it jumps straight to the lyrics of "We're not scaremongering. This is really happening." And it's like, yeah, wonder what would be happening within within a year to sort of, you know, to act as scaremongering. You know, a certain thing called the War on Terror.
Yes, our war on concepts. And how are our concepts doing? Drugs still exist? Does terror still exist? Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And obviously, from here, you also get the sort of, particularly on the chorus, where it starts to do the sort of glitch and jitter, and it's obviously, you know, this very cut up thing. Obviously, York was using the cut up technique a lot during this album, which let's talk about the cut up technique very quickly. Who's heard of William Burroughs?
Yes.
Yes. So the cut up technique is something that basically you take, like, written text and you chop it up, and obviously. It was pioneered by William Burroughs. Ironically, the next guy to really do it was a certain musician in the 1970s called David Bowie. And obviously, you know, York, I think, obviously knew there was a very influence for this, but, you know, it's this sense of this sort of free associative, you know, juxtaposition of, you know, basically. York is drawing pieces of paper out of a hat with phrases on them. Is there an inherent meaning? Is York constructing something, or is it like, you know, where the Talking Heads did it particularly as well, where it's sort of like a various bits of paper, you know, he's pulling out random phrases, and it just happens to we imbue a meaning on it from there. We covered three extremely important artists in like 30 seconds. But no, as I said, I think and obviously, ironically, David Byrne has subsequently said this is a really good album because David Byrne has good taste. And it's this sort of weird cut up, and it's sort of, you know, it's basically an Aphex Twin song meets this sort of free associative poetry panic attack.
Yeah. And all that said, I don't really think much of it. I mean, it's fine.
Wow, okay.
Like, I don't.
Oh boy.
Like,
I thought this was going to be the track your favorite track on the record.
No.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I just, like, this song passes through me, and it doesn't do much for me. Mostly because we're past optimistic. This is. I mean, the free association, and it's fine. It's just like it. I don't know what it's doing. Like, I get that it's not obvious, and from a writer's standpoint, you get what there's just this sense of, I don't know. I'm trying to describe it, and it's complicated feelings, but it's complicated feelings that doesn't resonate with me. It passes through and it just feels like another Radiohead song dealing with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit me in the personal way that How to Disappear Completely
Yeah.
and Optimistic does.
Yeah, as I said, this is this is like the time where you're right ahead of going, oh, we're gonna do a dance song and Tom's gonna do his stuff over the top. Rather than those other two songs are a gut punch. They are like, oh, look, we're coming close with our electronic noises. We're gonna punch you. We go, oh, we've missed you. Oh, well, look, we're gonna throw all these sort of apocalyptic concepts together in a song, and oh, we're gonna make you dance to it. We're gonna make you dance to the sort of the apocalypse. Are you happy? Dance to the apocalypse now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't do much for me. It's that there is a certain like thin wall between this kind of material between Radiohead and like all of the wannabe startup bands who want to say things about society and all of this stuff. And obviously there is a heavy level of skill experimentation and just able to express able to express his feelings not only through the lyrics but through the feel the mood of the music and manipulation of sound. Like that is gigantic, but they're definitely skilled. And but it this is like one thing not being executed well away from like being amateur, and that it's more than that. It's probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but you could see somebody making the same thing and oh my god, shut the fuck up, you pompous shit. Like, oh my god, just stop.
Yeah, something like, I don't know if you've ever listened to Muse's The Second Law, but they got like 3 tracks towards the end of The Second Law that are just like, and now Radiohead will, sorry, not Radiohead, and now Muse will do IDM, but not very good IDM. And it's like, a dubstep break in 2013. I'm sure this won't date data at all. I can see no problem with a dubstep break in 2013.
I have problems with Muse, not just
excellent as both of us them.
Okay, but it's just like I don't like the vocalist, and that's a big thing. Like if I don't, because I don't know. It's like it's one of the reasons I do not like Rush, and that's going to put me on a very minus. I mean, I like some Rush, but I cannot listen to an entire Rush album.
Rachel is on her way now, Joe.
Rachel is on her way now, and my deep dark secret has been revealed, and she will destroy me. But it's like everything else is good, but like if I listen to the vocalist and this isn't right, I don't like this.
Yeah,
it is distracting me from like the music itself, then that is a big problem. And that's Muse, and that's a lot of things that where I would be a whole lot more respectable if I did, but I can't lie to you.
Yeah, like Megadeth, for example.
Hello, me, it's me again.
Hello, me. We finally got it in an episode.
Yes.
But yeah, I appreciate that. Music is subjective, but I find if you get a vocalist that's got a, I mean, I love Bob Dylan. I appreciate Bob Dylan's voice is extremely idiosyncratic. I like Tom Waits. I appreciate Tom Waits sounds like this, and his voice is down to you.
Yes.
Say, hey, Tom Waits, I'm going to sing a song about and I appreciate that. I appreciate, what people have, some people don't like Tom York's voice for some reason.
No. And
that's fair enough.
It is a very flat voice. So it's something people, a lot of definitely white people think they can replicate, but they don't have the skill. And like, it is a lot tougher than it looks.
Yeah.
to do do the voice he does and make the music he does. Like, it is the combination of everything. It is not just one aspect, or it's not just talking about society, or it is all of these things that come together.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
like
Bear in mind,
Idiotech,
yeah.
Idiotech just doesn't come
Okay,
together for me emotionally in the same way. It
that's fair.
doesn't
Yeah,
hit me the same way everything else does.
yeah. Yeah, and that's fine. I said I like it. This was actually the first Radiohead track I ever heard because I think it was on a. It was definitely on like a compilation. I think it was on like the Guardian or something. It was like, here we got the new Radiohead track, and it's like, oh, hey, the new Radiohead track. This is, this. I've never heard this band called Radiohead. It's like, oh, this is danceable. And then you start listening to the lyrics, and it's like, oh God, oh Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
scary. Oh, thank you. And then we get to Morning Bell, which is
It's an instrumental. It's 6 a.m. and we're still awake. And there's the sun. It's coming up. Yep. We're still
yeah,
depressed. We're still really damn depressed
yeah,
and not ready to go to sleep.
yeah. This was ironically this is the only track that's actually shared between Amnesia and Amnesia and Kid A, which was redone as Morning Bell Amnesiac, which is basically the same song with different instrumentation. Which obviously indicate the sort of the very different sensibilities between the two records, and you know this is done as a full band thing with more instruments. So yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
about
And
divorce,
lyrics.
I think. Yeah, about divorce. So you know, it's sort of dark and sort of it is a very 6 in the morning sort of leaving home sensibility, and this is one of the things most notably off the mini discs, which obviously Radiohead released a few years ago when they leaked. I have all of mini discs hacked. It's great. It is like basically in places it is very unenlightening. In some places it is like sitting behind the board in the booth, sort of listening to just Radiohead just go at it, and it's like, okay, this is quite good. This is like there's like various takes of like some really interesting. I think there may be, because I think it's mostly of OK Computer material. Some demo versions of it, I'd have to go back and look and have a look. There's a massive document. I mean, if you ever get the chance to listen to like a lot of the material on it, it is worth doing. I don't know if it's still commercially available, so yeah. And finally, motion picture soundtrack.
Yes. A very, very depressing song and probably the perfect ender for this album.
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of an interesting one. This is Radiohead's attempt at the sonic sort of sound ability is apparently 1950s Disney movies.
Yeah. You can hear it in the harp and
Mm,
the voice that sounds like an angel lifting you to heaven.
yeah. Oh, definitely. It's sort of very much and obviously this also ironically is again a song Radiohead have been carrying around with them for years. Like there's stuff obviously that then gets also demoed for this album for Kid A that doesn't turn up until like in two cases, two tracks that were eventually released on A Moon-Shaped Pool 16 years later. This is the Radiohead sort of do this sort of really interesting thing where they carry a song, like Bowie used to do, where they would essentially record a song and go, no, this doesn't really quite work on this. The National Anthem, for example, is one of those. Is actually a song that Radiohead have been carrying them for a while, and there's also sort of stuff from the mini discs which we were doing when obviously did OK Computers. For example, there is a version of this is from 1987, a version, but obviously more motion picture soundtrack had been demoed for OK Computer, and two different versions, one of which is a full band version, one of which is a piano version. But yeah, it is the perfect bookend to the album. It's sort of like we've gone from electronicism, the deeply electronic, to something almost entirely analog.
Yeah. And it's weirdly, I mean, it not weirdly, but it's just the word I would say is suicidal is from this thing because it has very angelic, like letting go of this earth
Yeah.
music to it. And the first verse is like, red wine and sleeping pills help me get back into your arms, cheap sex and sad films help me get back to where I belong. It is like that is unstable to the point of breaking.
Yeah. And then obviously the recurrent image of the little white lies. So obviously we the album basically started talking about little white lies, and nothing has changed and nothing has moved
No,
forward, and we are still
nothing has
trapped
been made
in...
better. Nothing's
No.
you're
Yeah.
obviously Tom York is still awake at this hour and
Yeah.
is still not thinking good thoughts. And this is kind of like at the end of it when the sun is up and everybody is out and active and he is
Yeah.
still dead to the world.
Yeah. It's a suitably Radiohead-esque ending. I don't think, apart from obviously Moonshine Pool, which I think ends with perhaps the most beautiful track of Radiohead's, and perhaps the most optimistic, ironically, of Radiohead's entire discography, which is True Love Waits, which is probably a song that Tom York has been carrying with him for most of the existence of Radiohead. Is perhaps a cathartic ending, perhaps the indication that Radiohead might be turning the corner. At least Tom York sort of has been thinking happier thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think he's crazy. Maybe.
Yeah. This is... I mean, we could talk about the impact this album had, like, until the cows come home. This is one of these records that sort of goes, this is the shape of music for the next 25 years. And I think, to be honest, had we said that in 2000, I think would be relatively on the button. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some things like,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell you that. Like popular music stuff because I'm 43 and I try to keep up with things.
Yeah.
And there are certain movements here and there.
Yeah.
There's obviously like retro to 80s and 90s stuff that like filters in and affects it, but it's like the lack of guitar and the more electronic influences and this sort of everything's burning down, although everything has a certain like response to it, so like a lot more angry than other, but there is like the sadness and like the dreary trap rap music and stuff like that but that handles it in a different way.
Hear, joking aside, a lot of like, in terms of like the production, certainly I can hear a lot of like SoundCloud and mumble rap. But even like, I'm even, and this I don't intend this as a backhanded compliment, I can hear like sonically the sort of stuff that Billie Eilish was doing on like her first album. It's that sort of that same you
absolutely
can do sort of stuff like this is the thing, this is almost a post-band rock album. It's like you don't need a guitarist and a drummer and two bassists and whatever it is. You can have a computer, you can have a keyboard, you can have a couple of instruments for when you need them, and the rest of it you can make a good rock album with yourself and a synthesizer and a bass and maybe a drum machine. You don't need all of this accoutrement of a rock thing. Rock. This is where I think rock loses its edges. It's sort of like, this is where and obviously you can go argue other albums. You can certainly argue, the first Gorillaz album started to also push this envelope, although in terms that is more because it is just a grab bag of everything. Gorilla's self-titled is a fantastic record. We will have to talk about it at some time because it is just like, what is this and why is Damon Albarn in charge of this?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's sort of like the end of the band as a
collective and as like a rock band.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. You've had resurgences from like rock music, but really when you get past the mid 2000s, with a couple of exceptions of possibly the Arctic Monkeys, who sort of really came out of like a resurgence of like what I would call guitar based rock by the sort of the early 2010s. What Thom Yorke has done on particularly Thom Yorke, but the whole of Radiohead have done on Kid A has just soaked into the bedrock of modern rock music and frankly modern music generally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you could just do
and
this.
Like
you could do sort of stuff like this now in your bedroom.
Yes, and on the other end of that, there's like whatever Drake tries to do every month, but doesn't have the depth or the patience or anything to do. Like, I think this kind of aims at what he's kind of trying to do, but he does not have any of the proper abilities to grasp what Thom Yorke is doing, and it just comes off as drowsy, boring, dumb, and all of that. So I don't doubt that Drake has listened to Radiohead.
He's like, hey, I'm going to do an album called Kid D, and it's going to be about me and Drake. Canada's fifth best rapper. Come at me, Drake,
beyond,
come at me.
Beyond the current, situation where he has just been completely destroyed, but it's just like...
Yeah. I can imagine Kendrick Lamar doing I could imagine Kendrick Lamar. I mean, Kendrick Lamar, I would argue, has made an album as important and as prescient as Kid A, which is To Pimp a Butterfly, which is again a co-opting of non-typical sonics for in this case a rap album, which is a full jazz band, and it's like, hey, this is taking rap music in a direction we never I don't think anybody suspected. Taking the stuff that somebody used to sample and going, no, I'm going to have live performers in the studio acting as my backing band.
Yeah, and there's a lot of thought and work into that, which it's a thin wall. It's not that thin of a wall, but there's definitely a thin wall between that and Drake, which is just a lazy, drowsy, really crap that I don't like to listen to at all. But he still keeps trying to make it. Yeah. Well, not now, but
Yeah. Completely.
So,
and that's the thing. Ironically, the only place I can find where Thom Yorke and Kendrick Lamar have interceded is when they were both up for an Oscar in 2018 or 2019, which is a strange duo to consider.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but we also have 9 Inch Nails Oscar winners.
Yes. 9 Inch Nails double Disney soundtrack band. Anyway, but
yes.
I mean, we could talk about, we could do another podcast on just like, this is where Thom Yorke and Radiohead's mucky fingerprints have got to, and they are just everywhere. You can listen to, and arguably, I also think certainly there is a prescience to this. There is a sensibility of we are still living in this is real and this is happening sort of aftermath, and it's not fun, and
we still have streaming shows on Netflix or Apple TV that use everything in its right place as their trailer music.
It's part of the culture now. I mean, what was it? It was Napoleon used a Radiohead song, and it was like, what are you doing? Please stop. Everyone around. Yeah, very strange. Anyway, I mean, we as we could talk for hours about how influential this album is. It's Kid A. It's it is just this monolithic mountain range on the edge of sort of modern rock music that goes, over there is something new and exciting and frightening. You can choose to climb these mountains. You can choose to stay at the foothills. We're going over those mountains. See you later.
Mm-hmm. And then there's me, which is, again, my Casino Royale kind of thing, where it's just like, but OK Computer did this, and I like it better. I mean, I still really like Kid A. Like, obviously, I still... and it has had an effect on me,
this
good
isn't
or bad.
Revolver, Sergeant Pepper's for me. It's like, some days I prefer Kid A, some days I prefer OK Computer. They are basically both, you know, I think you have to go back to something like Nirvana, and perhaps back before that to sort of something like, I don't know, Kate Bush, to go, this is how you follow up an album which is already seismic in terms of... This is how you follow
absolutely.
up one of the greatest albums of all time. You do
and
that.
Weirdly enough, I probably have the same feelings as I do between Revolver and Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper probably has things that are better than everything in Revolver, but I like Revolver as a whole. There are some parts of Sgt. Pepper that are just like quizzical to me, that just like go, I'm just gonna let this song go, or I'm gonna skip it. And then there's like the most fantastic something like that. But
yes, Paul, very nice.
yes. But you know, Revolver, it's greatest as a whole. There's not like you don't point at Taxman, and even though it's a great song, it's just like, okay, this stands out above everything else. It's just like, it's all of Revolver.
Yeah, completely. As a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As a whole, I think it's like, and you could argue about how impactful. I mean, both are tremendously impactful records. They are, you know, you could probably write a sizable book on the impact of those two records on the last, you know, at this point, 30, you know, the last nearly 30 years of music, and and then Radiohead went off and did other stuff, and some of that stuff is really good, and some of that stuff is
but like, for to put this in perspective, like OK Computer and its like effects, there was an MTV show around 1997 called 12 Angry Viewers, where they would grab like 12 people off the street and like have them review music videos. And then they had a special Grammys one where like they were selecting the album of the year, and they selected OK Computer by Radiohead, and that was just like the effect they had on just music as a whole. Like, you know, this experimental new stuff that was you know, coming out, and Radiohead got people to, you know, grab onto it, and OK Computer did that, and definitely Kid A did that, because like I was hounded by people like, you need to listen to this, you need to listen to this right now, you need to absorb it right now, this is one of the biggest albums you're gonna have. And it didn't feel like that to start, because, you know, obviously when you pop in a rock album and then you get everything in its right place in Kid A, you're like, wait, where's the rock here? But you know, you eventually get to it, and it eventually becomes part of your world. It becomes, you know, part of how you react to everything, like you know, How to Disappear Completely and Optimistic do with me.
Yeah, and it's one of those albums you pull and I think this is always a mark of a great record. You pull from this record what you see yourself reflected in, I think, or what you see yourself reflected in, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic record. I mean, we're talking about two fantastic records here today. Go listen to the other episode.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about something very different and probably
Very
far more
different,
upbeat.
very much mocked by Thom Yorke, but it is still probably one of my most important albums of
Yeah.
all time.
Yeah, so if you go over to the other episode, we'll probably have this on the other episode to sort of say, to bring you back here in some terrifying podcast Oribus. We'll be talking, obviously, on the other episode released today, which is, if I get my timings right, should also be up at the moment.
Yes.
You can go and listen to us talk about What's the Story Morning Glory, Oasis's second and probably most important record.
Oasis's most important album in America, because I know the one before it was huge in Great Britain, and Live Forever is the song Oasis is known for. In America, it's Wonderwall. So, there's that mix, and we'll talk about that and more.
Yeah. Anyway, here is Wonderwall.
Anyway, here's
we'll see
Wonderwall.
We'll see you over on the other
we got to
episode.
do the social network stuff.
Yeah, oh yes, of course. We can be found on Patreon at the Thom and Joe Show. Thom is spelled with a H. We can be found on what is left of Twitter. We refuse to call it by its other name. At that not so final prod. When we get a blue sky, I will update and just go find us over here, because I don't like enabling South African Nazis for some reason. Which I'm sure Thom Yorke will probably agree with. Anyway, we will see you over at the Oasis episode or on another episode. Yes. I've been Thom.
I've been Joe. And I just learned this. We have 2 Thom with an H's here.
Yes.
So, this has been an episode with 2 Thoms and 1 Joe.
The Thom Club, if you will. Anyway, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
I'm not here. This isn't happening.
Yes.